Good evening, everyone. And I want to, on behalf of everyone here, wish a refuah shlema to our wonderful younger Rav, Itiel Goldwicht, and to Ariella, and to the family. They should all be well and healthy, and we'll hear good news from each other. This week's Parsha Vayigash begins with the great confrontation between the two leading brothers that formed Klal Yisrael. Yaakov, the father, is almost a peripheral character in this week's Parsha. But the main thrust of the Parsha at the beginning is regarding Yehuda and Yosef. Yosef has finally achieved his dreams. The brothers are completely within his power. They bow down to him, but they don't recognize him. They don't know who he is. But that's one of the strangest things in all of Chumash, in my opinion, because he drops breadcrumbs all along the way. And you see it in the speech that Yehuda himself says to Yosef. Adoni shoal osonu ayesh lechem overloch. He asked us, what about our father? Do we have brothers? So the Medrash puts into Yehuda's words is that he's saying to him, what, do you want to make a shidduch with us? I mean, what's in your business? Now, they should have picked up on that. Why is he asking them about it? Why is he concerned whether they have a father or a brother? His main accusation is that they are spies. So stick to the subject, so to speak. Just 1 second. Yes? I'm on a Zoom, Ephraim. But I heard your mother's doing well. Thank God. In an hour. Sorry. So they don't understand that it's Yosef. So there's a deep reason here for this misunderstanding. Because they never appreciated Yosef. They never saw Yosef for what he was. They saw him only as a troublemaker. They didn't see Yosef as tzaddik. They didn't see the potential and the greatness that Yosef had. Therefore, they can't deal with it. You know, many times in life, we never get over our first impressions of people. The Ponevezher Rav told me that he was a candidate for the Rabbonos in his hometown of Kula in Litte. And this was already when he was well known as a great Rav and as an orator, a leader. But he never was elected, no matter how many times he tried. Eventually, he became the Rav of Ponevezh, which was the second largest Jewish community in Lithuania after Kovna. So he told me that he once asked one of the members, leading members of the congregation in Kula, how come you never chose me? And he answered him, he said, Rebbe, we never could get over our memory of you as a child playing marbles outside in the courtyard of the shul. And that's a concept that exists. It's quoted in many Svarim, even though the quote is not from Jewish sources, of Ein Novi Be'iro, that in your own hometown, you can't be a prophet. Because there's someone that always remembers you, when you were a child, or when you did something foolish. And that first impression never departs. So it requires a greatness of character to be able to see past it. And the brothers, so to speak, never could. To them, Yosef was always the troublemaker. Yosef was always the one, Motze Dibosam Roel Aviem, told stories about them. He's always the one that's having dreams and lording it over them. He's always the one that's wearing the Tonet Pasim, the fancy tunic. So they never understood him. And therefore they never recognized him now. And that's why it says in the Posuk, Vayaker Yosef es Echov, Veheim lo hikiruhu. Yosef recognized his brothers. So it doesn't mean only that he recognized who they were. He recognized them physically. He understood them in all of their greatness and in all of their weaknesses. That's why he arrested Shimon, because he knew that Shimon and Levi are lethal together. And that's why he wants to see Binyamin, because he wants to see if the brothers really have repented and are willing to sacrifice themselves on behalf of a brother. But Vaheim lo hikiruhu, they didn't recognize it. And they didn't recognize him till the end. We'll see in next week's Parsha. When Yaakov dies, the brothers say to Yosef, Avinu tziva lifnei moso, our father commanded before he died that you should be nice to us. That was not true. Yaakov never commanded them anything. And it's obvious because if you want that Yosef should be nice to them, that Yaakov should have told Yosef, not them. But they are so on edge regarding Yosef that even after he has proven himself and he takes care of them and he protects them, they still don't recognize him. They still don't know who he is. They don't see Yosef Atzadik in front of them. They see Yosef as someone who is capable of harming them. And since they never outgrew that, so that even when Yaakov dies, and they're already established in the land of Goshen, and we're talking 17 years later, doesn't help. It still is Hein Lo Hikiru. They did not recognize him. They did not know him. On the other hand, Yosef now sees a different Yehuda in front of him. Yehuda now becomes the strongest of the brothers. He becomes the leader. Reuven doesn't say anything. Reuven still regrets that they did not follow his advice. So to speak, he is sulking. He was the classic I told you so person. I told you not to don't bother the child. And now we're paying the price. So even though Reuven is the oldest of the brothers, the brothers cannot have an I told you so person as their leader. Shimon and Levi are disqualified because of their violent nature. So now Yehuda steps into the role. Now Chazal say the famous statement, I'm saying this in explanation of the fact that we're going to go to elections again, apparently. There's ein memanim parnos al hatzibur Elohim kein kupa shel shrotzim munach al shichbo. You cannot appoint a leader, political leader on the Jewish people without having to resort to a person that's not 100% tzaddik. Chofetz Chaim can't be the prime minister. It's not cut out that way. And we see that throughout the Tanakh, the greatest kings, the holiest kings, Shaul, David, Shlomo, Chizkiyahu, all have major flaws, have committed behavior that is immoral and unjustified. Yet they remain the great leaders, because perhaps that's the natural state of leadership. You know, the French author Balzac once said that behind every great fortune is a great crime. Well, one can paraphrase that and say behind every great leader are acts that are, not necessarily of the highest moral quality. So Yehuda, who fell from favor amongst the brothers for his behavior with Tamar and for the advice that he gave them regarding the sale of Yosef. So he was not a perfect person. He's not a person that, an expose cannot be written about him. No, there's plenty to write. But he becomes the hero here. Yaakov will say, Miterev b'ni Olisa, you became the great man. You rose from the destruction of Joseph. Yosef, on the other hand, is a tzaddik. We don't find Yosef doing anything wrong. I mean, we can criticize his behavior towards his brothers, but that wasn't criminal. And it wasn't even malicious. It's more naivete than anything else. And when Yosef is confronted with the same type of situation that Yehuda was confronted with, Yosef runs away, denies the temptation. So Yosef is a tzaddik. Yehuda, for whatever he is never called a tzaddik. He's never called blameless. But not only is he the leader of the brother, he is the founder of the Jewish people. We're all called on his name. We are all Yehudim. And it's his tribe that survived, he and Levi. All the other tribes were absorbed into his tribe. So we have the perfect person versus the imperfect person. The Balei Kabbalah phrase it that this is Midas Adin versus Midas Arachamim. Yosef is Midas Adin, he's perfect. So if he's perfect, he expects perfection from you. You know that my Rebbe used to say that he was all in favor of Elohim, of geniuses. But he used to say that Elohim make pretty poor teachers. Because the Eloi, since he knows everything, and since he's a genius, and since he has a photographic memory, so he expects that the students will also be on that level. And they're not. Whereas if you take an ordinary, unquote, scholar who has worked his way through and who has had failures and who has ups and downs, and you make him a teacher, he can definitely empathize with the students in his class. He can definitely feel what was going on with them. I remember that when I had the yeshiva in Muncie, so I wanted to hire a certain person to be a Rebbe. I felt that he would give us a certain spark that otherwise was lacking in the faculty. So as I was about to hire him, I received a phone call from one of the teachers of the yeshiva that he had attended, who apparently was aware that I was interested in hiring this person. And this Rebbe told me, he said, I want you to know, he misbehaved terribly in my class. He was disrespectful. He cut every corner that he could. I was going to throw him out of the yeshiva, but the Rebbeim didn't let me. So I don't think you should hire him. So I thanked him for his information and for his advice. And I called in the prospective Rebbe. And I said to him, you know, I just got a call from the yeshiva that you went to. And they said you were very mischievous. You were undisciplined. They had a lot of aggravation from you. So why do you think I should hire you? And he said to me very cleverly, that's the reason that I hired him. He says, that's the absolute reason that you should hire me, because I understand the boys. I did it myself. I know what they're doing. I know what the problem is. I know how, so I'll know how to deal with it. He said, if you hire a goody-goody, that was the words that he used, someone that, he'll never figure out the boys. He'll never see what they're doing behind his back. Very astute observation. And I heard him, and he was wonderful. He was with me for decades. So Yosef, he doesn't recognize the brothers because he's not on their level. He's Mr. Perfection. You have tzaddik. Yehuda is not. But Yehuda is Mr. Teshuvah. The Terev B'ni Olisa. He picks himself up by his bootstraps and starts again. He's not defeated by the battle because he wants to win the war. And we see it in their names. Leah called him Yehuda Apam Odeh Hashem. I will give thanks to God. But Yehuda Odeh also means I will admit, Modeh. I admit the problem. Because she said, I know that my husband doesn't love me. I may admit the problem. Nevertheless, I want to give thanks to God, and I'll go on and we'll build the house of Israel. So Yehuda is that symbol of the striving to improve, not to accept one's status and remain that way, but to try always to raise oneself. And even if one is defeated on the way numerous times, the posuk in Mishlei, Sheva Yipol Tzadik Vakom. The righteous man falls 7 times. Vakom, but he gets up. The difference between the righteous man and the evil man many times is not in the fact that they both fall. The difference is Vakom, he gets up. He raises himself. V'terev b'ni Olisa. And therefore, Yehuda emphasizes that to Yosef in his speech. He doesn't say we're not guilty, even though it's a trumped up charge, even though it was planted on them. He says, rather, I am responsible. I wanted them, so let Binyamin go and I'll be your servant. I'm better than he is. I'll rise to the occasion. Yosef, on the other hand, his name is Yosef. Rachel said, may the Lord add. There's nothing wrong in the past. Give me more. Become a bigger tzaddik. Yosef li Hashem ben Acher. And Binyamin was really the holiest of the brothers. He didn't participate in this family feud. All of his life, he was the peaceful one. That's why the Beit HaMikdash was built pretty much on his territory in Yerushalayim. So he also is perfection. So we all strive for perfection, but we are all imperfect. And therefore we cannot be called the children of Yosef, we're called the children of Yehuda, because of the fact that we are always involved in the imperfection, which is human life, certainly Jewish life. People have always commented to me that they don't find that, so to speak, religious Jews, quote unquote, are such great people. So then, what is all of this about Torah? What does it mean if you don't see it reflected in the actions of people? And I've always answered, first of all, you should never confuse Jews with Judaism. Judaism is perfection. Jews are human. Because Jews are human, sometimes they misbehave. That is not a question on the Torah, but God forbid it on anything else. It's just a realization of what we're dealing with. I told him he can't expect an animal to sit down and write Shakespeare. That's the reality. So am I angry at the animal because it doesn't write Shakespeare? You can't expect perfection. And secondly, we have to look at things relatively. We have, the Gemara says there are 36 tzaddikim. Okay, so there's 36 tzaddikim. There are 36 people. There are people in our midst that hold up the world. So we have to see things in measure. And that's why when Yosef reveals himself to the brothers, and they are so shocked, Yosef has a hard time convincing them that he's Yosef. Not so much because of the fact that he wants, that they don't want to see how wrong they were, as it is the fact that they find it difficult to see in this 17-year-old teenage brat that spoke badly about them to their father, to see in him that he's now Yosef HaTzadik. Hard for them to assess what happened here. So Yosef and Yehuda march together in the Parsha, as they do it all throughout Jewish history. The drive for perfection coupled with the realization of imperfection. The attempt to be a holy nation when we have to live mundane and everyday lives, commerce, human interaction, political strife, and everything else that goes along with being a human being, especially in our time. So how do we adjust to all of this? Remains the test always. And that is what the Torah wants from us. That we should be able somehow to see in the narrative of Yosef and Yehuda our world as well. and to balance the lofty ideas of perfection oftentimes with the realities of imperfection, and to realize that they go hand in hand. They're both part of the Jewish people. They're both part of our service of God. And in so realizing and behaving, somehow we fulfill the mission of life that the Lord granted us. I want to thank you all for listening. Please stay well. Get vaccinated. I want that the whole shul should be vaccinated. And when the whole shul is vaccinated, and the whole shul will be immune, and the corona will depart from us, we'll see each other as smachot and in good cheer. Thank you and Shabbat Shalom.